Right, Tails, welcome to the stage.
Hello everyone, my name is Tails. I wasn't really sure what to prepare and what to teach precisely. Like an idea per se, and how to contribute to what we're trying to build here, right? Or something that could be built as project, right? So today I'm going to be pitching something slightly different. So without further ado, I hope that you guys can get a good takeaway out of this message. So I would like to start off with a quote. If I do see that I'm reading, just read my notes. We often tend to think that our happiness is on the next thing. On moving to a new place, on getting a new job, on meeting someone new, on achieving that one goal. It's always in that until I have that, then I will be happy. So we're constantly in that loop of snoozing our happiness. And if we believe that our happiness is somewhere else, it will always be withheld. There is also this quote, I don't know if maybe someone of you will be familiar with it, which is, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift, and that is why it's called a present. About 25 years ago, in what is nowadays Nepal, a prince was born. And for this son in particular, the king wanted it to make this sort of experiment with him. He said that this son will have everything that he always wanted and everything that he always needed. The child will not know what suffering was. He will always be happy. That was what the king wanted for him. So the king built walls all around the palace, so the prince will not know what is in the real world, per se. And so the prince grew up with everything that he wanted. He had servants for whatever that he asked for. It was done immediately for him. And soon enough, in the young adulthood of the prince, it became to become someone who was empty, right? Anything seemed to be enough for him. Anything had meaning for him. So every experience that he had felt empty for him. So late one night, the prince has snuck out of the palace, out of the walls, to see what was out there, right? And what he saw horrified him, because he saw the real world. He saw people starving, people suffering. He saw a mess in the streets. He saw everything that he was not familiar with. Right? And so the prince returned to the palace, kind of shocked, in a sort of existential crisis. And it was the riches, he thought, that his father gave him, what has turned him to so miserable. And so he felt that he didn't have any meaning in this life. So he decided to run away. And he would not just run away, but he would also give up for his loyalty. He would say, I don't want this anymore. His family, all of his possessions, his richness, everything. And he will now live in the streets like an animal. And there he would make himself starve, make himself miserable, beg for scraps of food, from strangers to the rest of his life. That's what he decided to do, and so he did. He went, escaped from the palace to never return, and he did that. And so for years, he lived like that, as a bum, a discarded and forgotten remnant? What's the word anymore? Of society. At this plant, the prince suffered greatly. He suffered through disease, through hunger, through pain, loneliness, and nothing happened. The prince began to notice that this life of suffering was all wrapped up. It was not bringing him the insight that he thought that it was going to give him. It was not bringing him the meaning that he thought that he was going to get out of it. And so he came to know what the rest of us already know, which is that suffering really sucks, right? And it's not necessarily meaningful either. And so as with being rich, there is no value in suffering without any meaningful purpose, right? And so totally confused, the prince cleaned himself up and went and found a big tree near a river. And there he said that he will sit until he came up with a greater realization, right? And so the confused prince, as the legend goes, the confused prince sat there for 49 days until he came to a number of profound realizations. And one of them was this, that life itself is a form of suffering. The rich suffer because of their richness, and the poor suffer because of their poverty. People without a family suffer because they don't have a family, and people with a family suffer because they have a family. This is not to say, of course, that all suffering is equal. Some suffering is certainly more painful than others, but we all suffer in some sort of way, right? We all struggle with something at some sort of level, and in different levels as well. Years later, the prince would build his own philosophy and share it with the world. And this would be its first and central tendency, that pain and loss are inevitable, and we should let go of trying to resist them. The prince would later become known as Pineda. So there is a premise that underlies a lot of our assumptions and beliefs that we usually have or come to have. And so the premise is that happiness is algorithmic. That if I achieve X, then I will be happy. If I can become Y, then I will be happy. If I can be with a person like Z, then I will find happiness. Right? This premise, though, is the problem itself, because happiness is not a solvable equation. Happiness is not an equation itself, it's a conjunction of variables. So dissatisfaction and unease are inherent parts of human natures, and as we'll see, necessary component of creating consistent happiness. We suffer for the simple reason that suffering is biologically useful. So suffering is nature's preferred agent for inspiring change. What does this mean? We have evolved to always live with a certain degree of dissatisfaction. Like it's part of our nature. Always want something else, always want something more. It's that part, it's that degree of dissatisfaction and insecurity that creates the mildly dissatisfied creature, the one that does the most work to innovate and create something new. So we are wired, biologically wired, to become dissatisfied with whatever we have and satisfied only with what we do not have. And this constant dissatisfaction has kept our species fighting and striving over the course of the years. And so, no, our own pain and misery is not a bug of human nature. It's a feature that we can all use, and our ancestors have used, to the point that we are all here now. So pain, in all of its forms, is our body's most effective means of restorative action. So take something simple as stubbing your toe, for example, right? Perhaps you will scream out, or you would course the table, per se, right? But it gets you, that pain gets you to acknowledge your physical limitations, right? That you have a limitation in your body and that you should not cross that barrier. And so as much as we hate it, pain gives us that feedback, per se, of what we should have. As physical pain, it also exists psychological pain or emotional pain. When we suffer for something, let's say the emotional or psychological equivalent of stubbing our toe and we feel crappy about it. It's feedback that our brain, our nervous system is telling us that there's something that is not okay, that we should pay attention to that. If we have a problem, or if we're doing something wrong, we inevitably feel wrong about it, that is feedback. And those negative emotions, we should not ignore. We should pay attention to them. Work. So, I'm running out of time, but my dear audience, dear friend, dear entrepreneur with great ideas and with great innovations, this speech is for every single one of you to take the problems and the struggles that you're facing, that you've been facing, and that you're going to face, and acknowledge the pressure, the preciousness of the process that comes with solving. Because happiness comes from solving. Thank
you. What inspired you to give this talk?
I was trying to find something that I said, what could I preach on? What idea? But I couldn't find like something that, an idea that, oh, I have this idea that I think prosper, I would be benefited to it. But I know all of you guys have wonderful ideas. You guys already have like a more concrete structure of what you guys want to build. And for every idea, there's a journey of struggles to go through. So I wanted to do this speech, this message. I want to give this message because in my personal life journey, I have come to experience a lot of problems and turbulence. And it's not, it's part of us, right? As humans, we all struggle in some way or another. So if I can share a message that will inspire you to see your problems with loving eyes and with eyes that you can thrive through them, I feel that is meaningful to me to share that inspiration with each of you.